Let's get started.
That's Julianne Hough. You probably know her as a dancer, actress, and host of Dancing with the Stars. But what you may not know is that she's also a badass entrepreneur who turned her love for movement into an online company called Kenergy. They say that everyone has a zone of genius, that sweet spot where what you're good at meets what you love. And yet most of us are still asking, what is my zone of genius? I wanted to dive deeper into that question, and I wanted to explore it with Julianne, who's about as self-aware as they come. You can look at obvious things that you're good at, like your job, or dancing, or writing. What if those things aren't your actual true zone of genius? What if your true zone of genius is more about the qualities that you bring to the stuff that you're obviously good at? Let's explore a deeper way of looking at it.
Can you think of anything else, maybe even in the process of like writing your book or just doing a book in the first place, that was a zone of genius that you leaned into that you have?
Well, I love when you said that, like, inspiring others through your boldness, because my philosophy is self, others, world.
Yeah.
If I can find a way to create something that's going to help me feel more connected to myself, that's going to allow me to see and be able to connect and relate to other people, I'm going to be able to experience the world in a better way. And so when I think of other things, I feel like I have the ability to, like, really see people and see their greatness and be a mirror for them. I think I hold a lot of space for my employees or the people that I work with, or a lot of, the people that come in and take Kenergy. They feel like, oh my gosh, I feel like anything is possible. I feel seen. I feel like whatever I didn't even recognize but knew existed, it just popped out.
Yeah. What do you mean by a mirror?
So I think in friendships, in business, in romantic relationships, I think that we attract people that allow ourselves to be seen. Yeah. And sometimes, like, with growth, it's not always the thing that you want to see. Yeah. So, just being prepared that you can be a reflection of anything that you're probably going through at the moment.
How do you think that shows up in, like, your work on Dancing with the Stars or, like, Kenergy? Like, tell me how you think people see themselves in that. Because I see what you're saying. I'm curious kind of your perception of what people get from the work you put out into the world.
I don't know. That's kind of been my superpower since I was like 12. I remember people used to come up to me and ask for advice, and I never would give advice.
Wow.
I would just ask them questions back for them to find the answer.
Oh my gosh, I need to get better at that skill. I feel like when people ask me for advice, I just give them advice, and that's not what they were actually asking for. And you know what? I should know this because my mom does this to me, and I'm not really asking for advice. I'm just sort of talking to her, and she'll give me the advice back. So I should know to stop it because I know how it feels. That's good. Okay, I need to learn from you.
But I don't know where that came from because I just did it at like 12 years old.
At 12, you're just like, I'm not going to give you the advice. I'm just going to think about what you're saying. I think thinking about what happened in youth and who you were as a young person, because I think for me, for example, so much of what I'm trying to do is like unlearn the stuff that I've learned post 12, because I was this person. I remember having like super crazy like gold outfits and like all of these things, and my cousins like laughing at me, and I think I unbecame that person and had to re-become that person. But if I'm looking at my zones of genius, it's useful to go back to like 12-ish to think about that. Like, I think performing, I've always been a performer, and that's been a thing that's really been helpful. I think this narrative about going back and learning yourself is part of your book. Can you say something about that?
First of all, I love that we're having this conversation because this is means so much to me. I wrote a song called Hurricane, and it was like, life is about unlearning everything you learned to get where you are today. Yeah. And it's, once you get there, you have to, you realize, wait, did I really make all these choices from my younger self that was so free and expressed, or did I create this version of myself because of my environment, my family system, my friends, somewhere along the journey? And I always say this about dance. It's like babies when music comes on and they're in their high chair, they are just dancing.
Yeah.
They're not worried if it's right or wrong or good or bad. They just are feeling it and grooving,
Who
right?
cares? Yeah.
And they have something like 10,000 unique movements. And as adults, we have like 1,000 unique movements because somewhere along our journey, whether it was in school or whatnot, somebody either said we weren't good at dancing or like we decided we weren't. Or, you know, and I'm just being very specific about dancing. This could be in anything.
Yeah, well, the impact then becomes possibly that there was a zone of genius that was in there that you then suppressed. And now you can't find your zone of genius because you pushed that gal down.
Exactly.
And you got to kind of give her some space again.
I always say it's like layers that you stack onto yourself, and it's like shedding off all the different layers to get back to yourself.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what, you know, my character and everything we never knew does. It's like she starts asking herself questions like, do I actually believe this? Did I choose this life, or did I just do what I thought I should be doing? And so she has to go through a whole system of unraveling, which is what I did.
Yeah, I think it's really useful, particularly in the conversation of entrepreneurship, to think about what other people's zones of genius are. Like if you don't know yours, maybe kind of looking at other people's, because they repeat themselves. It's not like you have to have a unique one that no one else has. And like if I said performing, yours can't be performing too. There can be overlap. I think about like examples of business women like Whitney Wolf Herd, who runs Bumble.
Yes.
And
Whitney.
Yeah. And I think like we could think about zones of genius as the job, right? Being a CEO or being a business person, but that's not really like a zone of genius. It's kind of underneath that, the qualities of the job, like we were talking about. Like I would imagine that cultural sensitivity and empathy are interesting potential zones of genius that she has because she's built this platform that says, okay, we're not going to date the traditional way that some of these other platforms are doing where men are running the show. We're going to actually flip the script and sort of have women in the leadership seat. And in order to have that kind of business insight, you need to be connected in
to understand what's happening in the world and who are the people that are wanting to drive these relationships and healthy relationships, and you know, and so I love that she was able to take something that was technically the same idea, a dating app, but completely inject it with a completely different energy and foresight of what's possible. So that's a great example.
That's vision, like you were saying. That's like an understanding of cultures and cultural sense and people and empathy. Those are zones of genius implemented in business. Another example is Emily Weiss, Glossier. And I think one of the interesting things about how Glossier has like happened is it's been so leaning on community. Like this community of women who don't want to be like caked up all the time. Sometimes you want like a natural looking makeup and a natural looking aesthetic and understanding how to build community. I have some friends who are like crazy good community builders.
Me too. Do you know Radha Agrawal? Radha and Mickey, they started Daybreaker, which is the morning rave.
Okay, I know
but
Daybreaker.
It's all about community. And I mean, I think Radha wrote a book called Belong or Belonging. And it's all about community. But that kind of goes back to my self-others world. It's like so Emily, for instance, you know, she started on her laptop and was doing it because it was a passion of hers. And then it became a sense of community for people to feel like I want to be less caked, I want to be more natural, and this is the place that I trust this person because this came from them. And then of course now the world part is she's connecting not just her passion, but now it's her community, and she has the luxury now of creating products that can be innovative, and she can listen and
to the
community. You know, it's all collaboration at the end of the day too, because we can't create anything solo. It's not one unique special idea. These ideas are all over. You're going to just feel the one that comes through you, and your expression is going to make it come to reality. I love that. Okay, I want to invite all of our viewers and listeners into this conversation. The easiest way to do this, if you come on YouTube, we can see the comments. Okay, perfect. And I would love to ask folks, if you're listening to this or watching this,
for you to put in the chat what you think 1 to 3 of your zones of genius are. And keep in mind that kind of the conversation we're having is that the zone of genius is not necessarily a job. It's it's not what you do. It's like a quality of a job. It's not CEO or it's not business person. It's like some of the qualities of that are zones of genius, or not qualities of what you do for work. It could be nothing related to what you do. Yeah. I'd love to hear in the chat kind of what you guys think your zones of genius are. And I also think there are some specific activities you can do if you don't know what your zone of genius is. One of them you mentioned earlier, which is I think to like dig into your childhood and your formative years. I did years ago this life coaching program called Landmark.
Oh yeah.
And
Landmark.
yeah, and in the program, one of the things that you do is you go back to identify like 3 moments in your life where you decided something about yourself or that really shaped and formed you. So I think, and I think kind of the framework generally is like one of them happens around 5-ish and one of them happens around like middle school time-ish and another one happens after that. So if I think about my own, my first one, I think I was in pre-kindergarten, like about to go to kindergarten.
Yeah.
And I had this friend, and the friend, she had like, I think she'd like grown up with her grandma, so she had like learned some kind of like racist stuff. And so we were playing, and we were playing being the princess, and she said, "You can't be the princess because you're black." Oh, wow. And I cried and I'm a tattletale, so I went and told the teacher. Good. And the teacher handled it amazingly. She was like, "Oh, of course Tara could be the princess. She's like all of the colors of the rainbow combined. She's a different kind of princess." And my like 4 or 5-year-old brain was like, "Oh, I'm a different kind of princess." And first, like that worked for me. I think there's some things in like decisions I made about myself or formative moments where I've decided I don't want that. I'm going to let that go. Yeah. But that one like has really served me my whole life to craft out space.
Remember that teacher's name?
I don't.
No, but wow.
I should find her.
What a powerful moment.
Yeah.
Wow.
She handled it really well.
Yeah.
And I think when I tell people that story, they go like, "Oh my gosh, that's a traumatizing story." But for me, it's such a beautiful story because it's really been core of like my ability to inspire boldness. One of my zones of genius, I think, is inspiring people. And I think it's specifically inspiring boldness. Like I
feel like I read that all over you. I love you so much. Yeah.
And it's been a personal practice for myself because like I have a voice in my head that's like, "Don't do that. What do you mean? What are people going to think?" Like, and I've really had to like work to tone it down. But I think like when I think about my career, that inspiring boldness thing almost like showed up for me accidentally. Like I had so many women come to me and be like, "I don't know other women entrepreneurs who look like you, who are in tech. Like that's inspiring me to lean into this thing." It almost like that zone of genius came clear to me from feedback from other people.
I love that.
Because I don't know that I would have said that myself.
Yeah, I love that. Isn't it so amazing that sometimes people can see you more clearly than you can of yourself?
Usually.
And you can see other people so clearly, right? But it's like we have these little protective barriers of ourselves because we want to do something the right way.
Yeah.
Versus just allowing it to happen. Do you know Bozoma St. John?
Yeah.
I mean, remind me of her and her boldness too. And like she's one of my favorite people. She's one of my mentors. She's been just an incredible person in my life. And just that unapologetic boldness, and you are a reflection of what's possible for someone else.
Yeah.
So I love the boldness. I'm a little bit more like, I like my black and creams and whites and like I
love it. But it has like a really unique shape. Your dress has got like you're doing your own boldness here. So I like it. Can you think of for your own childhood like things that really shaped you?
My goodness. I was the baby of my family at 5, and we all were dancers and singers and actors, and we all had ADHD for sure. And my mom, put us in lessons more so than she was very holistic growing up, and so we did kung fu, we did band,
all the things,
literally anything you could imagine.
Yeah.
And I think being the baby, I always wanted to be included, but I was always too young to be in the dance class or be in the singing, in the musical that they were doing.
Yeah.
But I sat there and I learned every single thing from just watching. So I'm a very visual learner, and I can watch something and I'm an observer.
Yeah.
So when I watch I see people's greatness, and I can pick out talent really, really well, and then I can also mimic it. So anything that I just tend to do, and I can get away with a lot because I can do it kind of well, like it's been my greatest attribute as well as my biggest thing that's like hurt me a little bit is I can kind of, anything that I pick up, I can kind of do.
Which helps with dance. You have to pick up skills. Yeah.
It helps. And like I can get away with it, you know? But my crutch to that is that I don't usually focus on one thing long enough to really dive deep into it.
If we had to put that as a zone of genius that you have now, to describe that, what would you call it in like one or two words? This ability.
Super adaptable.
Adaptable.
Super adaptable. I can pick up on the magnetism. I can pick up on certain things. I know how to read a room. I know,
reading people. Yeah.
Reading people. I really can.
Yeah, which helps you then ask those questions and ask. So if we think about like your work, for example, with Kenergy or your businesses, do you use that at all? The ability to sort of read people, to ask the right questions, to know where they are? Does that come up at all?
It is. And sometimes there's always two sides to a coin. Right?
Yeah.
So I go.
How does it work and how does it not work well? Yeah.
The way that it works is I dive right into somebody's heart and their soul and like what drives them, what's the why behind everything. And
can you give me an example of that?
So when we're having a conversation, when we're hiring, like it's like what motivates you, what drives you, and you can usually figure out if it's a sense of belonging. It's usually the wound, right? It's usually the wound of somebody. I want to belong, or I don't feel prioritized in my life. I don't have a sense of worthiness. There's just like universal wounds that we all experience. So I'm like, oh, interesting. What's driving them? Belonging, community. They're going to be really great in, working the front desk.
Yeah.
Because they have such a beautiful sense of community, and they're hungry for that.
What a beautiful, femininely expressed leadership skill that you have, that you're not scared to bring to the table. Like, I think so many people would be scared to be interviewing someone for a job and saying, like, what are their drivers as a person and who they are? And you immediately go to that.
I immediately go there because I think at the end of the day, like, what we do and who we are, you want them to be as closely aligned as possible. Yeah. So we're not flip-flopping of performing versus being. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, and so if you can find somebody who, like, I think it was something Sarah Blakely actually said about like finding the trifecta of like something that feeds your soul and something that's going to impact, right? I can't remember the second one. I think it was community-based. And then the third one was something that is like something to contribute. And if you can't figure out what that is, what breaks your heart?
Say more about that. What do you mean, what breaks your heart?
What breaks your heart? Like, how can you serve the world? And if you don't know how you want to serve, think about something that breaks your heart.
So if you're thinking about what are the things I want to do in this world,
like
you
what
can think about
like, I want to put out into the world.
What breaks your heart?
What breaks your heart?
Aha.
And for me, it's like people not feeling self-expressed. And that's why Kenergy came about, because I sometimes didn't feel self-expressed as a kid. I had to be very suppressed and be perfect in all these little things. Yeah. Right? And I want to be wild and free and all of those things. So it breaks my heart to feel like other people don't feel that as well. Yeah. And so, wow, like I know I have a passion for that because I want that for people.
I'm hearing that this zone of genius of being able to read people allowed you to know how to start and create Kenergy because you're reading the need of people to be self-expressed, and you go, I have a way that we can do that. And it's centrally aligned with my zone of genius of reading people and also what breaks my heart. Right? Yeah. And I'm also hearing more tactically that you're reading people as you hire, having some meetings, and that's something that's, helping. Yeah. What's the other side?
The other side is I go right into that, and then sometimes I'm like, wow, they're not good at their job.
Got it. But they're driven and want it.
They, they're really good people, but oh man, they really don't know how to do an Excel spreadsheet.
I can't tell you, like, I think when I think about my entrepreneurship journey, I think the biggest mistakes I have made are not letting someone go fast enough.
Yes.
Like prolonging that thing. They're miserable. I'm miserable. The whole team's miserable. Yep. And I'm trying to empathize with them and what they're trying to do. But really, I need less of that for a moment and just make that business decision. And one of the things that actually helps me with that is I go like, well, from an empathetic perspective, how is this impacting the rest of the team?
The rest of the team.
Because that person not performing well, not feeling good is impacting everybody and everything, and ultimately our customers too. That's the way I have to like drag myself to make that decision, but that totally makes sense.
No, it resonates for me so much. And like, you know, even when it comes to having a conversation, being clear and direct is the best thing that you can do for someone, even if it's hurtful in the moment and it might be a little jarring to hear. Clarity is respect.
Yeah.
And so, and I had to learn that along the way because I was so afraid of hurting someone. I ended up hurting them more because I couldn't actually be clear and direct with what wasn't working.
Yeah.
And that was a piece that I had to really learn along the way. And trust, and again, back to my book, what she does as well is she trusts herself that she has a discernment and knows that she's leading with love, but she has to be honest.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And if she stays true to herself, if I stay true to myself, but we're leading with love through honesty and clarity and directness and being bold.
Yeah.
There's so much care and respect in that.
Yeah.
And and trust me, I am the first person to say I would shun at the idea of hurting someone.
Yeah.
And I would make a lot of mistakes because I would let that lead my fear of hurting versus my love of being clear.
Yeah. Okay, so if I kind of recap the kind of activities we've talked about where if you don't know your zone of genius, you can kind of do this.
Yeah.
To get clear. We talked about like thinking about your childhood and like the version of yourself that before you made all the changes and modifications to kind of be accepted by the world, and kind of thinking about what your zones of genius were then, or even moments that really shaped you then where you decided the zone of genius or decided something about yourself that maybe shapes your zone of genius. And then you also had mentioned like you also can look at things that like what really kind of gets you going and pisses you off and makes you upset about the world, because that could lead you to some purpose and zones of genius as well. I think there's maybe one more thing you could do, which is ask someone. Like, what do you think my zones of genius are? I think I did a different leadership program, and that was part of what we had to do. It's like go ask other people, what do you think I'm good at? And I actually recently asked my partner this. We kind of did it back and forth. Like, what do you think each other is good at? Yeah. I remember when I asked my dad this, the phrasing he said was, you're self-propelled.
Ooh, I just got chills on that, too.
And it's very true. Like, I think also my therapist says self-contained, but they're kind of similar structures of just like, I kind of have like my own fuel. I don't really need to pull from other people's fuel. That's one of my zones of genius.
That is a zone of genius for sure, and I applaud you for that. Well, because I've pulled a lot from my external sources, which at any moment those things can fall apart. So the fact that yours is internal and you can feel that from within, that is, I envy that in not a jealous way. I envy that in a like, I'm so happy for you.
How do you pull from other sources? Because I think the downside of being self-propelled and having that as a zone of genius is I don't ask for help nearly enough. So it sounds like you are doing that and you're asking for help. Maybe in your businesses, like how are you leaning in and asking for help and bringing that in?
I recognize where my strengths are, and it always hasn't been that way. I was very self-propelled as a kid, and then I recognized, I was like, you know, this is hard doing this all by myself. I'm exhausted. My adrenals are just shot, you know? And then I realized, I was like, man, I actually don't know the answer to this. That's why, like, Sarah, Whitney, Bose, like, we're like, I have these group of women, Jamie Kern-Lima, who I just recently met. Like, she has been such a little angel and blessing in my life. And I just try to listen now. And, you know, what you said earlier, it's like you're in these seasons. You know, you come here and you learn by doing this show, and then you go and do, and then you execute, and then you come back and reflect. It's like having that reflection from people that you admire and respect and have been there and done that. Oh my gosh, there is so much wisdom there. And just like open your ears and just like be able to receive. And also, I'm very much in my era of asking for help and receiving at the moment for something that personally happened to me in the last month. And so this is a huge lesson of trusting that people will show up for you. In fact,
if you ask
and
say what you need.
I think I'm an internal optimist. I believe humans are good and that we want to help people and that's our innate nature. And so asking someone for help, oh my gosh, they're going to be so excited to be able to offer something. And so you're giving the gift of also allowing them to show up for you.
Okay, so a good way that everyone listening to this can start asking for help is to go ask someone, if you haven't commented in the chat already about what your zone of genius is, go turn to someone who's sitting near you that maybe has known you for at least a month. Ask them what they think you're good at, because getting that feedback is helpful.
It's also just great conversation starters too, because I think a lot of the time we're in a world where we're so isolated. We do everything on our phone. We do everything ourselves. Obviously, the pandemic, made that
accelerated it.
So it also just creates connection. And I think that's
a good
so
convo.
Great.
Okay, so one of the things I've heard you say you're good at that we haven't talked about necessarily is creating worlds. And I know that you're creating worlds and writing a book because it's a fiction book.
It is.
And can you tell us a little bit about what the book is about and how creating worlds in the book, this zone of genius that you have of creating worlds, kind of came about with writing it?
Absolutely. So this book, even though it's a fiction novel, it's very much based off of my own self-discovery, transformation, and healing journey. And so when I made the choice to make it a fiction novel, it was because I didn't really want to give everybody my private details, but I knew that there were universal themes that we all go through. And how can I use those universal themes and create a world so that when people actually read this book, they, like watching a movie, they can escape into a world where it's not as intimidating that, oh, I'm going to read a self-help book. But I'm going to be going on this epic adventure with this character that somehow feels like me, because it's the hero's journey. We all are in our own hero's journey. And using these universal themes and wounds and also, things that you experience that are great. And so that is what this book is. It's about a woman who seemingly has everything together. Perfect life, perfect husband, perfect job, perfect, everything. And she starts having these supernatural experiences where her senses are heightened. She starts seeing things and smelling things, tasting things, but it's not her memories, it's other people's. And so with this newfound, what is happening to me, she's too afraid to share what she's experiencing because she's changing, and the reflection of her and all of her friends and her, her partner are like, we don't want you to change. We want you to stay the same. So she's scared now to share these things. But along the way, she's like, but I can't abandon this feeling. Something is changing inside of me. And so she starts cultivating these powers within her. And she uses the elements, earth, fire, water, and air, as a tool to help her with her inner wisdom in trusting herself. Because water holds memory. Earth is where, life is created. The fire is that tenacity and willpower to move forward and take action. And air is that grace of you're not in this alone, using your voice. So as she goes on this journey, she thinks she's supposed to help heal other people. But of course, you can't help other people until you heal yourself.
That's right.
She goes on to this whole exploration of her own past where she has to go back and confront things that, like we were talking about, finding that authenticity of when we were kids before we started building these layers of protections and these systems to protect us. And I'm using air quotes because we think they're here to protect us, but they're actually closing us off to the deepest parts of our authenticity.
This feels so aligned to what this show is about, because I think on surface, the concept of bossy in a show about business and entrepreneurship could sound like it's just about tactics. And we do have really tactical conversations, but also I think a lot of the women and men who listen to and watch this show know that so much of the work of being a business person in entrepreneurship is doing the internal digging to really hone your own superpowers, your zones of genius. And so I love this.
Well,
this is
and
so
I think
aligned.
that is a lot of, again, what the book is about is we're so used to giving the power to other people because we think that they know more, that they're an expert in something.
Particularly us as women.
Yes.
Right? We tend to like pour and then give deferential. Yeah.
Yes. And, it is definitely worked in that favor for many, many years, and we have been pushing back.
Yeah.
And which is amazing. But also, it's also, instead of just pushing back, it's also, let me go in and know my worth and know my truth and trust that I do know.
Yeah.
In fact, our body doesn't lie. So if you allow it to come through your body,
yeah,
and not just in your head, but actually surrender your mind to your body will tell you everything that you already know. Everything we never knew is actually everything that we already know.
Okay, before we move on, I just want to say there was something a little bit earlier that you said that really gave me the chills back. And it was this concept you had said earlier at the beginning of our conversation, how you are good at reading people, but also knowing in that what it looks like is you knowing what questions to ask. And that sometimes people are asking for advice and they're not actually looking for advice. They're looking for questions to be asked to them so they can do that exploration. And I think that zone of genius is so nicely aligned with how you've come out with this book. Because instead of doing a nonfiction book that is here's how you do these things, you're let me tell you a story.
Yes.
Right. It's kind of let me do it on the side that's going to be not the kind of direct advice, but the thing on the side that is palatable, that lands and resonates with people. And your ability to do that. I think when I first heard about the book, I was oh, a fiction book. I think on surface, it sounded a little bit random. And I wanted to understand more, but I understand more now in understanding your zones of genius, why you would write a book like this. And I could imagine you might have had pressure to not write a book in this style and to do what typically people do who are sort of in the public light, which you sort of write a how I did a thing or kind of here's my life story.
Or you become the thought leader and the expert in something. And I'm I'm no expert. These are just my experiences and I want to share them because this helped me grow. But what worked for me might not work for you. So I thank you for saying what you just said.
Yeah, I get it.
I think everybody wants to be known in their life, and I feel very known right now by you seeing that. So thank you.
Yeah, and instead I'll tell you a story and ask you questions about yourself. You can figure it out.
And also, I'm not here to tell you what you know. You already know what you know.
In the title.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, so I want to dig into some of your businesses and business decisions.
Yeah.
Let's back up a little bit. Maybe you can tell folks what your businesses are. Is it primarily Kenergy? Are there other businesses? Give us a lay of the land of what you do from a business perspective.
So technically I have Hough Inc., which is my umbrella.
Okay.
Which is me as a performer.
Yes.
Because Julianne Hough is a business. 100%. And I didn't know that until a few years ago.
Yeah. Your personal brand.
My personal brand. I mean, I've been, hustling my butt. I've been making money. I've been, I was going to say whoring myself out, but
you could say it.
We
all are.
Hustling, And I never thought of myself as a business, but I have an entire team around me. And what's kind of interesting about that is I got maybe really lucky with staying true to myself. So that was what drove my business.
Yeah.
But I didn't really figure that out until a few years ago. So Julianne Hough
is a business.
100%.
Okay.
And then I have Kenergy. And Kenergy was, speaking of self, others, world, Julianne Hough is self. Others was how I wanted to contribute. Again, my learnings. And even this book is connected to Kenergy because it is how can I create something that allows people to connect to themselves and they can see their true gifts come through and shine through. So that is Kenergy. And it's a movement experience where you can take a class and it's through movement, breath work, and visualization through the elements, which obviously is very much this book. And it obviously is dance and physical activity, but it really is shifting your energy and I like to call it energetic health. We're in the age of mental health right now. We were in the age of physical health back in the 60s with the Weider brothers and weightlifting.
Yeah.
And mental health and emotional health right now.
That's where we are. Yeah.
But I think we're moving into energetic health. When you can change your energy, you can actually, the density of the physical and then the heaviness of sometimes the mindset. If you can go straight to your energy and change your energy, your mindset can change like that.
And then you can pull it into the work that you're doing to build a business or whatever it is. Yeah, 100%. Yes. I think, quick sidebar, I think I first saw your work and Kenergy's work on Oprah's tour.
Yes.
This was like 2020. She had like a Vision 2020 tour. And you, I think your team kind of like opened up for this, it was like a conference. I think the one I went to was like her and Michelle Obama.
Yes, that was here in
Brooklyn. In New York, yes. And I went with my friend Danielle. Yes. And I remember, like, I have my own visions of like doing conferences, and I remember how special it was to see that start and the way you moved the energy in the stadium, and the way you moved that energy. I was like, oh my gosh, like I would love to do that kind of energy and have that kind of thing be part of conferences that I do in the future. So you and your work are like in my mind, planted rent free.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that was the beginning of Kenergy. That's how we launched, and the method, the modality is actually a 45-minute journey that people go on. And I was like, how am I going to do this for 10 to 20,000 people in these stadiums
in a short period of time
in 17 minutes?
Yeah.
And so I adapted it. And also, there's no room for people to really move. You're sitting next to each other. So but I shifted and I adapted, and that's part of my superpower is like, okay, well, I can't be stuck in how the modality is going to transform people.
Yeah.
It can transform people no matter what. And so I shifted that, and that's how we launched Kenergy, was on tour with Oprah in 2020, and then the pandemic happened. Literally, our last show was on March 7th, and then, and so we had to shift, and we went into a digital platform, which I had no clue how to do. I am the least tech savvy person on the planet. And I ended up clearing out my basement. I put a studio together. We had COVID tests every day for our guides who were teaching the classes to come in. And I mean, we worked tirelessly through the pandemic to keep it alive.
Oh my gosh, so good. So as you're doing all of this, you're kind of leaning into things that you're good at. How did you know that Kenergy was going to work? Like when it was still an idea in your head, what told you it was going to be successful?
Well, I mean, if we want to get a little woo-woo,
we can.
Okay.
I'm here for it.
Okay,
always.
Great. So because I went through this transformation that is in this book with what Lexi goes through, it's my story, I started having these like activations happen where I just had this internal knowing. And
Vision,
and I trusted it. And I was like, I don't know why, but I know this formula of this movement, breath, and visualization pattern is going to open up something and unlock something. So as I was formulating this modality, it was transforming my life. And then I started having other people start doing it, and I was watching them have these incredible transformations.
Other people, like friends you were testing it with, or publicly?
Publicly.
Okay.
And I was trying to go into different, groups to see, like,
what do you mean by groups? Like
diversified groups. Like, okay, here's my artist friend group,
Okay.
Or like, let me go to, Utah and like, the Mormon culture. Let's see what theirs is.
And test it with those different people. And you physically went to do like...
Yeah, physically did this. I tested it with a bunch of Tony Robbins people who came in who are all high achievers and maybe a little bit more in their head and analytical, less
versus
in
their body. Yeah.
And so I was trying it out with different groups of people and like test groups, and it was transforming people's lives. And funny enough, because women tend to be a little bit more open and curious, the men who did it had sometimes the bigger aha moments because it was so out of their comfort zone. And yet it wasn't. Like the movements that are created are all follow along movements that are primal to our body. It's not choreography. So,
and if you are good at reading people, going out and testing your business idea in front of various groups of people is a really good way to do that. I always tell entrepreneurs that like you should start pitching your idea and talking to people about your idea, not necessarily like selling it, but just tell people what you're working on. So many entrepreneurs are like, I can't tell anyone, I'm going to hold it tight. And no one in their life knows the idea that they have. And I think I can think of specific friends who their zone of genius is also reading people. They're very empathetic. They really know people really well. My friend Joe is like this. I don't know. I know he has a business idea. I don't know if anybody in his life knows
what it is.
The business idea. And I bet that would be the way to start, because he can read people really well. So he can see, like, are people gravitating to this or not?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I two sides to the coin, because I'm a chatterbox and I will say all the ideas and I'm like, dang it, somebody did that.
But you're leaning into.
But I'm leaning in. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to ask folks to participate one more time. Come to the comments. Tell us one way that you could lean into your zone of genius even more, like an opportunity in your life where you could lean in even more. We're going to have folks say it in the chat and we can kind of like help and support and root each other on.
Yes. I love this community you have. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I like to ask, because we all, talking about it and like hearing someone else talk about it is one thing. Actually being like, well, what is my zone of genius, and writing it down is another thing.
And going back to the like collaboration, it's like we're co-creating the world that we live in.
Yeah.
Like if none of us existed and one person was deciding what we were doing, like this world would not look like this. We're all collectively creating this.
That's right. I also come from a culture of call and response.
Yeah.
And so like we're part of it together.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. Did you study business in any capacity?
No, and in fact, I have always I have a wound that is I'm not smart enough. I never went to school, and like I'm too young. Those three things are the questions in my head that make me feel not capable.
The voice that pops up. Yeah.
Right? The voice is like, I barely graduated high school, didn't go to college. I kind of just faked it till I made it, you know? And then, you know, I'm always in a room of people that I think know better, or they've been doing this longer, or I'm the little girl, even though I'm not now.
Yeah, but it's still seared in your mind.
Yeah.
And we make these decisions about ourselves as we grow up that we're still operating on 5-year-old logic anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, got it. I like that you know. That.
But knowledge is power. And talking about like the fact that you when you put things out there, you take the charge away. You take the charge of whatever is inside in your head or whatever. If I say, ooh, I'm feeling super shameful about this moment. And I just acknowledge it and own it. Boom, the charge goes away.
Totally. My two favorite like voices and narratives in my head that sometimes get in the way of my entrepreneurship. I have to be intentional about it. One of them is nobody wants me, nobody chooses me. I'm not enough, I'm not doing enough.
Yes.
That's the second one.
And I'm not enough, I'm not doing enough. Woo, that one comes in heavy.
Yes.
I need to do more. Got it.
Okay.
I mean, have you seen my career? I've literally done everything.
You're doing all the things. Good for you. It's like good for you, and also we can
chill out.
Okay, good. So I want to close out by doing like a quick game activity.
I love it.
So I want to tell you names of three people.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me for each of them what you perceive their zone of genius to be.
Okay. I hope that I know these people.
I think you might.
Okay.
I think you might. Okay. Derek Hough.
Oh.
Your brother.
He has so many zones of genius.
He was also a Dancing with the Stars judge, no?
Yeah, he is a judge, and he's, you know, multiple-time Emmy-winning choreographer. My brother is a creative genius in the sense that he can see the details of things that people miss. He sees the beauty in the tiny, tiny details.
Interesting. That's a unique combination. Creative and detail-oriented combined. That's a powerful one. Creative detail.
And we work a lot in collaboration together, and I am a high-concept person. And so when he's in his dark, like, detailed, stuck place, I can pull him out. And when I'm too high concept, he can get me into the details.
Bring you down. Okay.
So finding your people is
beautiful. Okay. All right. Creative detail. Okay. What about Nina Dobrev?
Nina.
Who's your business partner with a wine business, correct?
Nina
She's an actress too.
She's an actress, but she is so blunt. She asks for exactly what she wants.
Just says it.
She just says it. And it's so funny because usually the thing that's in somebody else that irritates you is the thing that is inside of yourself that you don't allow come out. And so sometimes when she's blunt, I get really like triggered by it because I'm like, Nina, how could you say that? That's so blunt.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, it's because I wish that I was that blunt. Ooh. You know?
Yeah, usually the thing that bothers you in someone else usually has something to do with you.
1,000%. And so she is my greatest teacher when it comes to speaking up for yourself, being blunt and direct.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes.
Okay, I have one more. Mel B.
Mel B.
Yeah, who also is on Dancing with the Stars and Spice Girls, of course.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Zone of Genius.
I think her zone of genius is her unapologetic, I don't give a fuck, you know. Sorry, am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, you can.
But just like freedom. I think that she is completely self-expressed in who she is, and she she is unapologetically her, and I love seeing that.
It's giving so I do what I want.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do what I want, and I do it with like beauty and power, you know?
Beautiful. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. There were points where I think we got woo-woo, but I think I often tell folks, like when I talk to entrepreneurs, I think that entrepreneurs at a really early stage, they just want tactics. I think tactics will save all the whole day. And in reality, most of entrepreneurship is this mirror that gets put up to yourself where you have to look and go like, oh, wait, it's me. These are the things that I'm in my own way about. These are the things that I could lean more into.
Yes.
And I love that we're having this conversation about like holistic self because that's so much of the journey. Thank you so much for having this conversation
with me.
This was
so fun.
It lit me up. It gave me lots of energy.
Oh, me too. Me too.
All right, we're going to wrap up here.